My name is Abigail, I'm 28, and I am a ghost. No, I haven't died. It's worse. I live in a quiet Boston suburb, in a rented apartment filled with books I read to drown out the silence. But my real home, the one where I became invisible, is 10 miles from here. It's a large, well-kept house with a perfect lawn and windows that glow in the dark, reflecting a life where there is no longer a place for me. I am a ghost because I exist, but I am not seen. I wander through the rooms of my past, unheard and unnoticed, and the only thing I leave behind is a cold sense of unease. And soon, they will feel it. Oh, they will definitely feel it. It didn't all start at once. Disappearing is a process, slow and agonizing, like erosion. First, the small details fade, then the larger features, and eventually, all that's left of you is a blurred silhouette, easily missed against the bright wallpaper of someone else's happiness. As a child, I was the quiet girl. While my older brother Michael shone, first in sports, then in academics, I sat in a corner with a book. His trophies and medals took up an entire shelf in the living room, which Mom proudly dusted every Saturday. My only achievement was a certificate for winning a school essay contest, which hung modestly behind the door in my room until it faded and was put away in a box of old things. Michael is so driven, just like his father, Mom would tell her friends on the phone while I sat in my room, hearing every word. And Abby? Well, Abby is a dreamer. Quiet, in her own world. In her own world was their polite way of saying strange, incomprehensible. They didn't know what to do with a child who didn't bring home trophies and didn't need a noisy group of friends. My successes were intangible. You couldn't touch them and put them on display. An A in literature couldn't compare to a winning goal in a soccer match. First place in the history Olympiad was nothing compared to Michael getting into a prestigious university. I tried. God, how I tried. I started playing volleyball but was too clumsy. I tried painting, but my pictures were called gloomy. I tried to be cheerful and sociable at family gatherings, but my laughter sounded fake, and I quickly tired of the empty conversations, retreating into my usual world of silence. They saw it as an unwillingness to be with them, not a desperate attempt to find my place. Over the years, the distance grew. Phone calls became shorter. How are you, Abby? Fine, Mom. That's good. Okay, I have to run. Michael's on the other line. Click. A dial tone. Invitations to family dinners became rarer, and I often found out about them after the fact, scrolling through photos on social media. There they all were. Mom, Dad, Michael with his ever-radiant wife Sarah, Aunt Jen, Uncle Mark. They were laughing, hugging at a table laden with Mom's favorite dishes. And I wasn't there. At first, I would call hurt and ask, "Why didn't you invite me?" The response was always an awkward, "Oh, Abby, we thought you were busy." It was all so spontaneous. Spontaneous. 3 times in a row. On Thanksgiving. On Mom's birthday. On their wedding anniversary. The final nail in my coffin was last Christmas. I waited for a call all through December. I had bought gifts, a new cashmere scarf for Dad, Mom's favorite perfume, an expensive wine set for Michael and Sarah. The boxes sat under my small artificial tree, wrapped in beautiful paper. I waited. December 24th passed in silence. On the morning of the 25th, I couldn't take it anymore and went to Sarah's Instagram page. A new photo. The whole family in matching Christmas sweaters by the fireplace. In the background, a huge, decorated tree. They were smiling for the camera, and the caption read, "The best Christmas with the people I love most." In that moment, something inside me broke. Not with a crash, but with a dull, quiet crack, like thin ice breaking underfoot. I didn't cry. I just sat in complete silence, staring at the phone screen, feeling the last thread connecting me to them stretch thin and snap. I wasn't just forgotten. I was erased. Excluded from the list of people I love most. They didn't even bother to lie, to come up with an excuse. They just went on living as if I had never existed. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the window, watching the falling snow, and I thought, The resentment that had been building for years turned into a cold, crystal-clear rage. But I didn't want to scream, or break dishes, or send them angry texts. That would be too easy. Too much their style. They would call me hysterical, crazy, and it would only confirm their rightness, the rightness in keeping me at a distance. No. My revenge would be different. It would be quiet. Invisible. I would become the ghost they deserved. I wouldn't destroy anything physically. I would destroy their peace of mind. Their certainty that the world is orderly and logical. I would make them feel what I had felt my entire life. Like you're going mad in a world that ignores you. I had a key to their house. An old key they gave me when I was a teenager, one they never asked for back. They forgot. The irony. The following week, on a Wednesday afternoon when I knew for certain that Dad was at work and Mom was at her book club, I entered their house for the first time not as a daughter, but as a thief. A thief who came not to steal things, but to steal their sanity. My heart pounded as I turned the key in the lock. The door opened with a soft creak. Inside, it smelled of Mom's perfume and something cozy, homey. The scent that once brought me comfort now made me sick. I took off my shoes in the entryway, an old habit, and tiptoed into the living room. There was that shelf with Michael's awards. I took one of his trophies, the biggest one, and simply moved it a few inches to the left. Then I took the TV remote from the coffee table and placed it on the mantelpiece, behind a photo of Michael and Sarah. In the kitchen, I swapped the salt and sugar shakers. In Dad's office, I opened his laptop. I knew the password. It hadn't changed in 10 years, and changed the desktop background. Instead of the usual photo of their golden retriever, I set a standard Windows landscape, but with a barely noticeable difference in the shade of blue. These were small things. Silly, childish pranks. But it was only the beginning. I spent no more than 15 minutes in the house and left, locking the door behind me. That evening, I imagined what was happening in the house. Dad comes home from work, wants to watch the news, and can't find the remote. Mom drinks her evening tea and is surprised to find it salty. They would blame their own absent-mindedness. "We're getting old, Richard," Mom would say with a chuckle. "You probably put it somewhere, Carol," Dad would reply. I was right. The next day, Mom called Aunt Jen. I knew they talked every day. I couldn't hear their conversation, but I could imagine it. Complaints about memory, about things going missing. Nothing serious. Yet. A week later, I went back. This time, I was bolder. In the bathroom, I rearranged their toothbrushes. In my parents' bedroom, I took one of Mom's favorite earrings, a pearl one, from a pair Dad gave her for their anniversary, and hid it in the pocket of an old coat deep in the closet. I knew she would search for it for days, blaming herself for being careless. In Dad's office, I found a stack of bills ready to be paid. I took one, the most important one, the mortgage, and tucked it between the pages of a thick book on the shelf. Let them be late with the payment. Let them get a fine. Let them feel a pang of anxiety. With each visit, I grew more confident. I was a shadow gliding through their perfect home. I knew every family member's schedule. I knew where the keys were kept, what their passwords were, what their habits were. I used their predictability against them. The tension in the house began to rise. I could feel it, even without being there. One day, I sat in my car across the street, watching the windows. I saw them gesturing, walking from room to room. They started to argue. "Richard, I swear I left my glasses on the nightstand." I could almost hear Mom's voice. "And I'm sure I paid that bill. Where could it have gone?" Dad would answer. They began to doubt each other. Their cozy, predictable world started to crack. The cracks were small, almost invisible, but I knew they were there. I was creating them. My favorite pastime became the photographs. Their house was full of framed pictures. On the walls, on tables, on shelves. Mostly Michael, of course. Michael at graduation. Michael at his wedding. Michael with his newborn son. There were a few of me, mostly from childhood, where I stood slightly apart from the main group. Every time I came to the house, I would do something to one of the photos. Turn it by a single degree. Shift it slightly to the side. One time, I opened the frame of their wedding photo and placed a tiny, almost unnoticeable dead fly under the glass. They noticed. Not right away. But after a while, Mom started saying, "I think this picture is hanging crooked." Dad would go and straighten it. The next week, another one would be crooked. It was driving them mad. It was irrational. Inexplicable. The house, their fortress, was no longer a safe place. Something alien, invisible, had taken up residence and was playing games with them. I became obsessed. I thought about it day and night, planning my next moves. What else could I do to heighten their discomfort? I didn't want to cause them physical pain. I wanted them to feel just like me, lonely, misunderstood, on the verge of insanity. I wanted their reality to be shaken. Spring arrived. My parents' anniversary was approaching. 35 years. I knew they were planning a small dinner for their closest loved ones. Naturally, I was not on the guest list. I found out about it when I once again accessed Dad's computer and saw the email exchange with the restaurant. Michael and Sarah were supposed to send them a gift and a card. I knew when the courier would deliver the package. That day, I staked out their house from the morning. Seeing the delivery van, I waited until the driver left the box at the door and drove away. Then I got out of my car, walked up to the house, took the package, and returned to my sanctuary. At home, I carefully opened the box. Inside was an expensive set of crystal glasses and a card signed in Sarah's calligraphic handwriting. "Dear Mom and Dad, congratulations on your 35th anniversary. You are an example of true love for us. We love you very much. Michael, Sarah, and little Jake." I took that card and burned it in the sink. I washed the ashes down the drain. Then I took a blank card I had bought in advance, with a generic floral pattern, and placed it in the box. Empty. Without a single word. I resealed the box so that no one could tell it had been opened, and the next day before they were due home, I put it back on the porch. I would have given anything to see their faces, to hear their conversation. "Carol, look, a package from Michael." "Oh, how lovely. Let's see what's inside." They open the box, see the glasses. "How beautiful. And where's the card?" "Here it is." Mom takes the card, opens it, and sees nothing. Silence. What did they think in that moment? That their beloved perfect son had forgotten to sign the card? Or hadn't bothered to at all? Was it a ridiculous mistake or a sign of inattention, of neglect? The next day, I saw Mom leaving the house. Her eyes were red from crying. Victory. It was my small, bitter victory. I had made them feel forgotten. But it wasn't enough. My next step was more cruel. Mom had an old, battered leather-bound notebook. It was her recipe book, inherited from her mother. It held all the family secrets, the recipe for her famous apple pie, the Thanksgiving turkey, and, of course, the Christmas cookies. It wasn't just a book. It was a relic, the heart of their home. I knew that book by heart. As a child, I often sat beside her while she cooked, watching her turn the yellowed pages. During one of my visits, I found the book in the kitchen. I opened it to the page with the apple pie recipe. I found a pen in a drawer with the same blue ink and, trying to imitate Mom's handwriting, I made one tiny change. Instead of 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, I wrote 1 tablespoon of cinnamon. And next to the sugar cookie recipe, I added a pinch of salt to the ingredient list. This was a blow to the very heart of their traditions. I knew they would be having guests soon, and Mom would surely bake her signature pie. She would follow the recipe, trusting it as she had her whole life. And it would fail. The pie would be ruined. The guests would be disappointed. And she would stand in the middle of her kitchen, confused and humiliated, not understanding what went wrong. And so it happened. I was again sitting in my car across the street on the day of the dinner party. The guests left earlier than usual. The light stayed on in the kitchen for a long time. I saw Mom's silhouette, She was rushing around the kitchen, then sat down at the table, holding her head in her hands. An inner voice sometimes whispered that I was going too far, that I was turning into a monster. One day, standing in their bedroom, I saw a bottle of tranquilizers on Mom's nightstand. A new, almost full bottle. On Dad's desk, I noticed a brochure about age-related memory loss. They weren't just arguing. They were scared. They felt they were losing control over their lives, over their own minds. For a moment, I felt sorry for them. I saw not indifferent monsters, but two elderly, frightened people. I almost turned back, almost decided to end this game. But then I would remember. I would remember my lonely Christmas. My birthday, which only Aunt Jen remembered with a perfunctory card. I would remember the dozens of missed calls and hundreds of empty promises. I would remember my reflection in the dark screen of my phone, illuminated by their happy family photo. And pity would give way to cold, hard determination. They had to go through this. They had to pay for my disappearance. I wasn't asking for much. I just wanted to be seen. For my presence to matter. If they couldn't give me that willingly, they would get it the hard way. My plan grew more elaborate. I started leaving traces. Not evidence, but rather signs that were meant to suggest something supernatural. A ghost. I knew Mom was afraid of drafts. I started leaving the window in the guest room on the second floor open just a millimeter. It was enough for a subtle chill to move through the house, for doors to creak softly, for curtains to stir slightly. Dad was a pragmatist to the bone. For him, I prepared something different. He had a collection of old vinyl records. Frank Sinatra, Elvis. He listened to them on weekends. I bought an identical Sinatra record at an antique store. During one of my visits, I swapped it. My record had a defect. In one spot, the needle always skipped, repeating the same phrase. Alone, alone, alone. I imagined him sitting in his armchair on a Sunday evening, and suddenly the music is interrupted by that endless, stuck word. He would get up, check the needle, wipe the record, put it on again. And again, in the same place. Alone, alone. I wanted them to feel alone. Not together, but each in their own fear. Michael's birthday was approaching. He was turning 32. Of course, a big party was planned at their house. Sarah, his wife, took charge of the organization. I saw the guest lists, the menu, the seating chart. It was all on her tablet, which she once left in the kitchen. This was my chance. A chance to strike not only at my parents but at the golden boy himself. A few days before the party, I snuck into the house. This time, my target was the basement. Boxes of old things were stored there. I knew what I was looking for. A box labeled, Michael's Childhood. Inside were his school diaries, drawings, crafts, and photo albums. I took one album, the thickest one. It had pictures from his teenage years. Parties, friends, his first girlfriend. I carefully removed a few photos. In one, he was hugging the girl he had dumped for Sarah. In another, he was at a rowdy, drunken party that his parents never knew about. I scanned these photos. Then, using my Photoshop skills, I did something else. I found my own childhood photos, where I was alone. I cut out my small, lonely figure and pasted it into the background of their happy pictures. There I am, standing in the shadow of a tree while Michael and his friends play ball. There's my pale face peeking out from behind a door at his graduation. I made it look eerie, as if a ghost from the past was watching them. On the day of the party, I prepared my main surprise. I knew Sarah planned to show the guests a slideshow of Michael's photos set to music. She had prepared a flash drive and left it in the laptop in Dad's office. An hour before the guests arrived, while the house was in a pre-party frenzy, I slipped inside. It was risky, but adrenaline drowned out the fear. I found the laptop. I deleted her file and uploaded mine. My slideshow included all the photos I had prepared, the compromising old pictures and the ones where I was a ghost. And at the very end, I put a black screen on which one phrase slowly appeared in white letters. Did you forget someone? I didn't stay to see the effect. I left, my heart beating so hard it felt like it could be heard on the street. I don't know what happened at that party, but the next day, the house looked like it had been through a hurricane. Paper cups littered the lawn, and the trash cans were overflowing. No one came outside. The windows were tightly shuttered. Something had changed. They no longer blamed everything on forgetfulness. I could see it in the way Dad looked around when he walked to his car. The way Mom scurried to the door after getting the mail. They were scared. They understood that an external hostile force had interfered in their lives. My last visit was different. I didn't want to move or break anything. I just wanted to leave an undeniable sign of my presence. I entered the house at night while they were sleeping. I went up to the second floor, to my old room. It had long been converted into a guest room, but a box of my things was still in the closet. I took out that same faded essay certificate. I went down to the living room. On the wall above the fireplace hung a new family portrait, taken at that very Christmas I hadn't been invited to. Everyone was smiling. A happy, perfect family. I took the portrait off the wall. It was heavy. In its place, right in the center, I hung my old, yellowed certificate. It looked ridiculous and lonely on the empty wall. Then I took their portrait and carried it to my old room. And I left it on the bed, face down. In the morning, when they woke up, they would come downstairs. They would see the empty wall, where a reminder of me, of their forgotten daughter, hung forlornly. They would rush upstairs to the guest room and find their perfect image, rejected, abandoned, just as they had once abandoned me. I'm sitting in my car across the street, waiting for the lights to turn on in the windows. I don't know what will happen next. Maybe they'll call the police. Maybe they'll decide the house is haunted by a poltergeist. Or maybe they'll finally understand. I see the light go on in their bedroom. Then on the stairs. They're coming down now. They're about to see. My revenge is almost complete. I made them see me. I was no longer just an emptiness, but a frightening, tangible force in their lives. I destroyed their peace, their world. But looking at this house where I once grew up, I feel not only triumph. I feel a hollowness. They will notice me. But will they ever love me again? Or will I forever remain a ghost to be feared? The front door of the house opens. Dad steps out onto the porch. He looks from side to side, peering into the morning fog. His gaze sweeps over my car but doesn't linger. He doesn't see me. Or does he? He keeps looking in my direction. And I sit, motionless, and realize that the game is just beginning. Now that they've felt my presence, will I stop? Or will I go all the way, until nothing is left of their perfect world but ruins? I don't have the answer. I just turn the key in the ignition. The engine quietly comes to life. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left, and thank you for watching.